Chair better. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the April 2nd, 2012 Washougal City Council meeting and ask that you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Russell. Here. Councilmember Plinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel. Councilmember Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman, excuse me.
Here.
And Councilmember McDaniel has asked to be excused.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we excuse Councilmember McDaniel.
Second.
Hearing no
objection,
so ordered. Amendments to the agenda. I've got three amendments we're going to throw at you this evening. The first one is an executive session to go in after new business regarding a labor matter with potential action to follow. The second item I have for you is items A and B under new business. If there's no objection from the council, I would like to move to immediately after our correspondence portion so that we can get some gentlemen over to Camas right after they're finished here this evening. Do you need a motion?
I don't need a motion as long as no one objects.
No objection.
Okay. Correspondence.
No.
That brings us right to, and I'm going to further confuse folks in the audience and the council as well. We noted a little error just before the meeting started. We're going to go first to Agenda Bill 3412, which is an authorization for the mayor to sign a revision to the interlocal agreement for trial consolidation of fire departments with GAMUS to include consolidation of command and staff personnel. Your packets actually have this listed as Agenda Bill 3512. This is 3412, and we will make a correction to the record for that as well. I think everybody is pretty much up to speed on this item that we've talked about. This is further consolidating the command staff itself and putting it under one chain of command for the remainder of the trial consolidation. The recommended action is to authorize the mayor to sign the revised interlocal agreement. Is there
So moved.
discussion? Is there a second?
I second it.
I've got a motion and a second. Council discussion? Dave?
Mr. Mayor, I think we pretty well beat this one to death during the
Workshop.
the last session that we had, the workshop. And I thought that was a very interesting session. I think that Mr. Greenlee and I probably agree on this. I think we're both looking for what's the return on investment, and is it going to work? And is it going to solve the problem? We've got a problem, we've got a couple of problems we need to solve. The ambulance service is one of them. So far, this hasn't solved that problem. We need to solve that problem. So we put the pressure on the two chiefs over there to come up with a solution to that, and they've indicated they would take that challenge on. And also the RFA, the Regional Fire Authority Consolidation Committee, Exploratory Committee, is going to look at that issue also. So I think the concerns that some of the council members here have had are now being addressed. Heretofore they haven't been, but by golly, people are taking it seriously now, and I think we're going to get somewhere. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Other council comments?
Just briefly, I would basically second most of that. I think it was a wake-up call, an eye-opener for us.
couple of years ago, the first time we looked at real economic projections, the first time at least since I've been on this council, where we looked at economic projections out a couple of years and said, my goodness, there's not a way in the world we can afford to do this, especially with fire and EMS. We have got to find a way to slow the growth in the expenses to fit more closely the very slow growth in revenue that the city faces. And so I agree with Councilmember Shoemaker. We're very concerned about this, and that I think we're both have a healthy degree of skepticism and at the same time a very high degree of hope. So this looks good to me.
Any other council comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the revised interlocal agreement with the city of Camas for trial consolidation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The second item is Agenda Bill 3512, marked 3412 in your agenda packets, but it is 3512, which is the confirmation of the appointment of an interim fire chief for a period of the trial consolidation with the Camas Fire Department. And this would be confirming my appointment of Chief Swinhart from Camas as the Washougal Fire Chief, subject to the provisions of the Memorandum of Appointment and the Trial Consolidation Interlocal Agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to make the appointment.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to confirm the mayor's appointment of Chief Swinhart as Washougal Fire Chief, subject to the provisions of the Memorandum of Appointment. Council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, Nick, would you meet me up front? Mrs. Swinhart, would you like to come up as well? We're going to put you on the spot. Anywhere that's convenient. We can use this one when we all get all said and done, so. Look at this. She's blushing in a hurry. If you would, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
I, Nick Swinhart,
I, Nick Swinhart,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution of the laws, and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington,
and will to the best of my judgment,
and will to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skill, and ability,
truly, faithfully, diligently,
truly, faithfully, diligently,
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties of the office of Fire Chief for the city of Washougal
perform the duties of the office of Fire Chief for the city of Washougal
in and for Clark County,
in and for Clark County,
Washington,
Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Because I don't want prisoners
Oh, no, it's Southpaw.
I do. It means that we're incorporating campus, and I don't want.
Not time for comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I just had a couple words that I wanted to say. It's truly an honor for me to be appointed by this body as the interim fire chief of Washougal Fire Department, leader in the ongoing efforts between our two cities to merge our two departments. You know, this is a step that many departments are taking around the United States, around Washington. In these difficult economic times, we have to think outside the box and try to find ways to increase our efficiency, save money. And I think in what we've shown here is to actually find ways to improve the level of service. A lot of departments out there are just struggling to maintain what they have. And what we've been able to do in the last 6 months is actually increase levels of service in the city of Washougal, and I think that's great. You know, I know that there's certainly some trepidation among members of the community, among members of the department, about what this signifies and where we go from here. And certainly change of this level is significant. This is the first time in the history of the two cities that we've had a department head up two departments. And that moment is not lost on me. You know, the pledge I make to the citizens of this community and to the elected officials of this council is that we will continue to operate a transparent department that's fiscally responsible and continue to find ways to increase the level of service we provide to the citizens of this community. That's what we're here for. To the members of the department, one of the promises I make to them is a willingness to listen, to learn, to build upon the successes of those who came before me, because I'm building off of what Chief Schumacher has done so far and the people who came before him. And also find ways to embrace their identity and to celebrate their culture, because I think those things are important. Nobody's coming into the Washougal Fire Department and replacing decals or anything like that. The names are still gonna say Washougal Fire Department on the trucks. The fire station's still gonna say Washougal Fire Department. So there are some changes that'll be coming up, but nothing major, and so I thank the council for their trust in me, the firefighters of the department, and also to Chief Ron Schumacher. Without Ron's help in getting to where we are, I mean, it wouldn't have been possible to be here at all. So thank you very much, and I won't let the city of Washougal down.
Thank you, Chief. And just so everybody knows, Chief Swinhart and Chief Schumacher are not going to be rude this evening, but at some point they're going to have to leave for Camus because Camus's meeting starts at 7, and they'll be taking their actions this evening as well. So we'll see how quickly we can move through this. Public comments. That takes us to the spot on the agenda. First opportunity for public comments. Anyone from the public that wishes to address council. I'd like to start this evening, if we could, with Representative Ann Rivers, who is here this evening. And welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Doug. Is this on?
We think so. It starts in after a while.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Gard and members of the Washougal City Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. It's been great to work with you these past, well, I'll say 5 legislative sessions. I'm getting ready, I'm told, to enter into yet another one. Want to let you know that I am working, keeping an eye on the capital budget on behalf of you. Have met with Congress, or I'm going to give Council Lady McDaniel a promotion to Congresswoman. I've met with Jennifer and also with Sean to hear about the projects that are most important to you. And we're going to be looking at alternative ways to get those done, since many of them are transportation, and they've taken transportation, road, and bridge projects out of the Public Works Trust Fund, out of the capital budget. Looks like they're going to be moving them over to transportation. So keeping an eye on those sorts of things for you, and just want to thank you for being, you guys are doing a great job, and Washougal's a place that more and more people are talking about in a very favorable way, so I want to thank you for that. That makes it a lot easier to get things done on your behalf up in Olympia, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. You know, we've had, there have been quite a few items that we've been interested in the last 2 years, and a number of those we've gotten very favorable comments and votes from Representative Rivers, so thank you very much for that.
Quick question, who was that from where?
I'm sorry?
Who was that from where?
State your name and your address, please.
For the record, I'm Representative Ann Rivers, Position 1, 18th Legislative District, 33911 Northeast 24th Avenue, the Center, Washington.
Thanks, Ann. Any other members of the public wishing to address council? Okay, moving into consent agenda. Please don't be shy. Come on up.
I'm speaking for the mayor.
If you would come to the microphone, please.
We need to have it for the recording.
We need to have you on the record, please.
Yeah, I'm a voter in Washougal.
If you could give your name and address.
My name is Cecil Hopkins, 234 13th Street, Washougal, Washington.
Thank you.
I voted for some of you people. You know, I thought some of you would have help the citizens of Washougal. But I see you came in here to fill your pockets, raise our prices.
Mr. Hopkins, if you would, please keep your tone down. Do you wish to step away from the microphone until you can keep your tone down?
I think this water bill that you guys have put out is taken away from the people of Washougal, the poor people, the people who don't even have any money. And you guys are all thinking about money. That's all you guys think about. You know, I would not vote for any of you because just like this, putting Camas and Washougal together, that's never happened.
And
And it
it-
shouldn't happen.
And hasn't happened this evening.
Huh?
And hasn't happened this evening.
Putting fire department together, Camas fire chief, what is Washougal fire chief now, that ain't putting it together.
That's not putting the cities together.
It sure is, buddy, whether you know it or not.
Mr. Hopkins, if you'd like to go ahead and sit until you can keep a tone that is civil into the
I'm not
chambers.
talking loud. You're the one who wanted me by the microphone. You guys think about that water thing. I mean, I know people that have no money, can't even pay their bills now, and you guys are raising the rates on it. You guys just think we're full of money to fill your pockets? No, we aren't. Most of us are low income, and you guys aren't. You don't even think about the low income. I see nothing but people that want power and money setting before you. You've not done good for Washougal, and I will not, again, vote for any of you. And I voted for quite a few of you because I thought that you would come in here and help the people of Washougal, not try to destroy us.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
that's
Hopkins.
what you're trying to do is destroy us.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
I ain't done.
You are done. Thank you.
I'm not done.
Mr. Hopkins, would you please return to your seat?
I'm not done. I don't care.
Mr. Hopkins, would you please return to your seat? Are there any other members of the public wishing to address council? Good evening.
Well, hi there. I'm William Durgan, 221 13th Street, Washougal. Had a few things to touch on real quick. I didn't have much time to even think about coming down. But, this 20 more trains a week, everybody in here should be very opposed to that. Any of you that aren't, I'm opposed to your way of thinking. There's already a lot of traffic congestion here caused by the trains. It's gonna lower property values, it's not good for people's health. None of that is good. So I don't know why anyone in here isn't raising a real big issue with that, as all of you should. I haven't heard much about it. I heard Camas, one of them, didn't even know what problem a coal train could be. There's a lot of them. Read up on it, I have. I could go on all night just about that.
Just so you know, Mr. Durgan, 2 weeks ago, the council passed a resolution that went up to the state in opposition to, without having further discussions, to the additional trains.
Good. Everybody on the board should be opposed to it.
It was 7-0, I believe, at this council.
Yep. The other issue with the railroads that I do have, all these no, they're not, they're marked unofficial crossings. The railroad has money, those should all be official crossings. The only one in town being an official crossing, being the overpass, is ridiculous, and they should have to make those all official crossings, every one of them. Handicapped people should not have to go across the overpass to have an official crossing. That's ridiculous. And somebody here should probably get a hold of them about that, because they've got the money. The other thing, this whole water issue that's coming up, that's a lot of increase. I heard someone just say you guys need the revenue, but raising them the amount that you're talking about doing and the amount of years you're doing, that's You don't even have credit cards. Most credit cards won't even do that to people, so I don't get why you want to try and do this to the people here. You know, the people that did vote you in, and I'm looking at it, that's ridiculous to move stuff up that much, that fast. You can't see it, don't know how you get away with it, but I'm sure there's somebody or some of us around that would love to come and run against you if you're all really that much in favor of it. The other thing was, the last mayor, where is she now?
Unknown.
And what charges were brought up against her?
I don't believe there are any charges that have been
Well,
brought
she's
up.
in Maine with our money and no one ever did anything about it. I don't like that either. Didn't you have a person go through the records, look at them, then you hire that person to be your own record keeper?
No.
No?
The state of Washington,
The auditor?
the auditor's office, she was employed by,
And she's employed where?
here at the city.
Okay, to me, this seems like kind of a conflict of interest, that she would audit your books and then come say they're okay and then come down and take over your books.
She didn't actually audit our books.
She didn't? That's what I read.
If you could, Mr. Durgan, go ahead and finish your comments.
Okay. The railroad, done with that. The water rates, this is ridiculous, so you all give that some thought before the next election, because you're not all gonna be here after that. Not if you're into passing this.
Thank you, Mr. Durgan. Is there any other members of the public wishing to address council?
Yes, sir. My name is Tamara Armstrong. I live at 1235 C Street. I've lived here for about the last 6 years. I'm employed over at Hamilton Woolen Mills, which is a really, if it comes right down to it, these water bills, I called the city here when they went up again and politely got hung up on. And I'm not happy about that. I work really hard for my money. Every dime I make, I sweat for, as do all of these people here, every single one of them. Whether they're retired, whether they've lived here for 40 years, we're working hard for our money, very hard. I sweat my fanny off down there at that mill every single day. And these bills are rising and rising and rising. Why? I want to know why. That's what I'm asking. Why? We can't afford to bring water into our homes, and we can't afford to let our sewer out. There has to be some sort of medium here. We can't afford this. Where do you want us to go? Really? Can you give me some answers for that? You guys are on the planning commissions, you're the council, you're the city of Washougal. Do the citizens really have any say? Do they? I just like to know the answers.
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, would you explain that the council isn't allowed to respond during this time?
I think we just have.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to address council? Yes, ma'am.
My question to this one.
No, ma'am, they're not. This is not a question and answer period, though. If you'll be patient, your questions will be answered.
My name is Darlene Hopkins. I live at 234 13th Street, Washington. I do have a paper that says what some of this is for. And I understand that things do go up. But I think the rates that we are getting is way more than what we deserve. We as human beings cannot live without water. We can't even live without food longer than we can water. Today, I have a Renai water heater, which is a gallon container. And if that thing is on, pounds per pressure, you have enough, it will never run out. But to get that water to my kitchen, it takes almost 2 gallons before it's hot. So I am catching this water in containers and then trudging out to my washroom and dumping it in the washer because my bill is so high. I'm trying, and last year, we didn't water hardly at all. And this year, we won't be able to water at all. And the high rates, they're gonna be really hard on low-income families or no-income families. And again, I say, we cannot live without water.
Thank you, Mrs. Hopkins. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Come on.
My name's Marcia Rodriguez. I live at 641 23rd Street in Washington. I looked at this. I work from 8:30 in the morning until sometimes 7 o'clock at night. I'm by myself. Unless my dogs learn how to flush the toilet and get their own water, I can't afford this. I'm not on my own, not when I'm not even there.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Any other members of the public wishing to address council? Okay. To give a little bit of history of where we have been with the water and sewer rates, council adopted 2 years ago some rates that are set to go in place over the next, 2 years ago, the council adopted rates for a 5-year rate increase. This was the second of 5 of those years. It's not something that this council did lightly. It is not something this council did in a single action. It was something that was done over many, many meetings, an ungodly expensive rate study, a comprehensive study and update of our water and sewer infrastructure program so that we would come into compliance. I don't believe we were ever in compliance, come into compliance finally with the state and federal regulations as they regard water and sewer within the city of Washougal. The rates are astounding because of the amount of work that needed to be done to bring those into line, some of those capital projects that have not even been started yet. That was also the reason for a $16 million bond that we issued last year to help pay for some of those improvements themselves. We're working diligently at a staff level to try and erase as much of that as we can, to consolidate projects, to find grants for projects, and to find lower cost money for those projects that we have yet to do. The reality is, though, that the system had to come into compliance, or it's very likely that we would have lost our permits with the state. And I'm not sure, I am sure that most of you probably don't understand what would happen if we lost our permit to both dispense and treat water. Most likely either Clark County or Clark Public Utilities or the City of Camas would have been commanded to come in and take over our system. They would still need to bring that same system up to compliance. They would still need to do the redundant systems that are required for us to bring that system up to compliance, and they would still need to do those same capital projects to keep it in compliance. I don't believe any of the three of those would be able to do it any less expensively than what our operators that are already familiar with the system and that have been here at the city for many years are able to do. There are none of us that like the rates that went into place. We tried to keep that process as absolutely open, as absolutely in front of the public as we could when those were going through. The reality is that this is only the second year of 5 years of a rate increase that has been worked through. While we'll try and bring those down, I don't want anybody to believe that those are probably going to completely go away, because there just is not money out there like there was years ago in order to do those projects. Not the answer any of you, I'm sure, care to hear, but that's the reality of the situation.
If I could add just a couple of things. For people who read the Oregonian and who read about Portland and the Portland Water Bureau, that could be a foreign country as far as this is concerned here. Washington law absolutely does not permit water utility fees to be spent on anything other than water utilities. No bike paths, no Rose Festival, none of that stuff. Every nickel that is paid in water rates goes to the water utility. Every nickel that is paid in sewer rates goes to the sewer utility. So all of those stories that you hear about other places, it just doesn't happen here. The other problem was that for many years, the city literally did not know how much it cost to produce water and treat sewage. Those costs are now borne by the utilities. And we don't get any of that money, not any of it. I'm retired myself. I live on a fixed income. We're not happy about this, but we are literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. The hard place being that we can't print money. The water utility has to pay for itself. The sewer utility has to pay for itself. We don't have any choice.
Other council comments? John?
I'm very glad that Representative Rivers is here tonight. Thank you for being here. And I know that she's been working hard in Olympia to get the Department of Ecology off our backs and to get, to help us, give us more autonomy here locally. If you're wanting to help us, please contact your state representative, your state senator, your federal congresswoman. Talk to them because they have the ability to work to try to pass things to get the pressure off of us. But as long as they're pushing mandates on us from the state and federal government, this is what has to happen to stay in compliance so that we don't get fined, so we don't get the city utilities taken away from us. Help us in that regard. Contact them and tell them to stop the mandates on our water and sewer rates. Thank you.
Other council comments? David?
I would suggest that you, as Councilman Russell says, talk to your federal and state representatives. You've got one here tonight who has taken her time to come down here and meet with us. I don't remember that happening before. I think that's wonderful. Welcome. I'm sorry that it was on a night when you had to hear all this. On the other hand, maybe it was good that you get a chance to hear it. I think, building on what Councilman Russell and Councilman Greenlee said, was that the problem is one of what's called incremental improvement. The people that run these programs at the federal and state level are dyed-in-the-wool environmentalists, and they believe in what they're doing. And as technology makes possible some incremental level of improvement, they mandate that it takes place simply because we can do it. And the question that I think we should be raising is, should we be doing it? And here's the reason. The first incremental improvement might have given you 50% improvement on the water standards that you had, and it would have cost you X millions of dollars, say 10 million at this level. The next incremental level of improvement might have given you 25% improvement, but it'll cost you 4 times as much. It's harder to squeeze out that next level of improvement. And finally, you get down to where we are, and the level of improvement is very, very small, but the cost increment is very, very high. And when this is imposed on us, by law, we have no choice but to go out, raise the rates, raise the capital, do the improvement, and that means new water facilities and new personnel to run them, new training for the personnel that we hire. It's just an amazing amount of expenditure in order to comply. And I would point out to everybody here that something you probably don't know. The people that run our water utility and our sewer utilities are award-winning people here in the state of Washington. I think something like 1/3 get these awards every year of all the facilities in the state. And we've had, I think, what, 2 in a row?
I think it's more than 2.
So the people here are doing a good job. We need help with, we need your help to put pressure on your representatives at the federal and state level to bring some common sense to this process. There's a limit to what you can do and what you can pay for. And the folks in these departments have not recognized that yet. We need your help to get them to recognize that. And the path to that recognition lies through your elected representatives at the federal and state level. I encourage you to talk with them. And believe me, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Dave. John?
I just want to add to that real quick. One of the mandates that have been placed on us, I think you'll find very interesting. Some of the water that we have to clean after it comes back to us, after it's been used, and we have to clean and then put it back out in the system. It's been described as they want it to be returned as pre-colonial deforestation era. So they're wanting us to clean it to the level before colonialism ever happened and send it back into the river. Who has a specimen of that? I don't know. But that's just one of the ridiculous mandates they place on us in regards to how we have to clean the water and put it back in there. So that's just an example for you guys as well.
Other council comments? Dave?
One last comment, if I might. I don't know whether you're aware of businesses locally here who are doing this sort of work, but help me out, the name of the product, the company down here that makes the forest products on the corner?
Exterior Woods.
Exterior Wood, thank you. Got a mind blank there momentarily. Exterior Wood invested over $1 million to create a system that would treat the water that comes off their pavement and out of their manufacturing facility, where they use a variety of chemicals, and treat it to the point where it not only could be put into the Columbia River, but you could drink it. I was at a demonstration one day where they ran it out of the tank there, and somebody drank it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There are businesses, as well as government entities, who are out there trying to do this job. They've invested a lot of money in it. And as the head of Exterior Wood told me last year, in order to make it through this recession, we're turning over every rock looking for pennies to save. And yet during that time period, they invested $1 million in treating the water. And they don't even dump it on our system. They treat it and put it directly into the Columbia. They have a federal permit to do so. So it takes the burden off of us. So there are people out there who are trying to keep your water bill down. Local businesses, the city, and some of our representatives are fighting hard for us. They just haven't been able to make the impact that they need to make yet. So give us a hand, lean on your representatives, and tell them what you need. We'll do the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other council comments? I certainly welcome all members of the public, and we're trying to get this word out at as many meetings as we can. Please continue to watch our agendas. We do have a addendum to the rate study that we have underway now, which will hopefully create a fund that we're able to use for folks who are low income and disabled that don't have the ability to pay those bills. Some of that now we'll be doing through voluntary contributions for folks who are able to do that, similar to what some folks do during the wintertime on their heating bills. In addition, we'll be at a staff level bringing back to the council a way for us to put some seed money in that, which, don't get the idea that we're necessarily throwing money away or trying to put it somewhere, but quite frankly, those funds are likely to come from the fees that we're required to charge for late payments for water bills and sewer bills. So we're going to try and put that money to work a different way in our budget and put it into helping to fund that fund to be able to help those folks who are most in need. So again, it is not something that this council deliberated just a short period for. This was probably one of the most difficult votes 2 years ago that the council ever took. I don't have any explanation for you why previous councils for many, many years before didn't do any increases. And believe me, we never see folks show up at council chambers to thank us for not increasing things. It just doesn't happen. But at a time when expenses were going up significantly, at times when even labor rates were going up at 3% a year, your water and sewer bills were going up exactly zero. And there's no way for that to continue. And that, unfortunately, for a lot of the council that are up here, that's a situation that they inherited and that we had to deal with. So, again, I urge you to continue to watch our agendas. We do try and get them out as early as possible, both on websites and to the newspapers, to get those printed and out there in front of you to know what we're dealing with. Any last comments from council?
I have one quick question. You were saying you were trying to watch that and lower those where you could. So in the last 2 years, have you been able to lower those rates at all, other than what's on this form, or are they stuck exactly with that?
No, the 2 rate increases that have gone in place are the 2 that were recommended to go in place at the time that it was adopted.
They've watched, but you couldn't do anything about it?
No, we literally, over the last 2 years, and this is nothing on council's behalf, at a staff level, we have not yet had the time to get completely into those rates to figure out where we can try and stop that. Now, to give you an idea, though, we did do that with the general fund. That's where we started in the general fund in 2010. And from 2010 to now, David, help me out. What have we carved out of the general fund back to savings to the budgets? Probably close to $2.5 million?
20%.
I'd have to do that math quickly. It might approach that. It was 1 million in 10, and almost that again in 11. And then there's, in the general fund, some of the revenues came in and our expenses were lower, so we were able to add to our reserves in the general fund, but that's not our utility fund,
Right.
as you know.
I don't expect when we get into it that we're going to find those vast savings in the utility side, only because part of those for the last 2 years have been part of the scrutiny that we've had in the budgeting process itself, not in the process that we put in place in 2010, but certainly the budgeting process for 11 and 12. So some of those have already been cranked down on to some degree. Would it make a big difference today in the rates? It likely wouldn't make 1% or 1.5% difference in there. And I'm not one of those individuals that believes that even if it's just 1.5% to 2.5%, that's something. And you can probably use it a whole lot better than we can, and you've got a better way of spending it than we do. So as we find those and are able to group those and know that we haven't done it incorrectly and are going to put ourselves right back in the same boat, those will be coming forward as we look at those rates going into future years' budgets. Even though the rates have been approved for the next 3 years hence, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to be in the same spot of having to do that. Council can still amend those if we find savings in there to bring them down. But in the end, we've got to meet our obligations that we're out there for, otherwise we default. That's the only choice we have, and for a city to default is a fairly significant act. Again, I appreciate the comments. I certainly don't want anybody to believe that we're trying to cut you off from comments, that type of stuff. But the decorum within the chamber, I'll certainly keep at any time during the discussions. We always want to have discussions with our citizens. There's never a time that we don't want to be talking and that we don't want to be listening. So I appreciate all of you being here this evening. I'm sure the council does as well. Okay, moving to consent agenda. I have one item I want to move from the consent agenda off, which is item E, for a minor correction to the agenda bill itself. This evening, we have a consent agenda consisting of our council minutes of March 19th, 2012, our workshop minutes of March 26th, 2012, our regular accounts payable claims in the amount of $161,522.78, Agenda Bill 2912, authorization for the mayor to sign Decant Services Interlocal Agreement Amendment from Clark County, Agenda Bill 3112, authorizing the mayor to sign a professional services agreement from Ecological Land Services for environmental assessment for Heartwood Park Trail Development. Agenda Bill 3212, authorization for the mayor to sign a project grant agreement from the Washington State Utilities and Transportation Commission for a protective grade crossing at 32nd Street. And Agenda Bill 3312, postponing adoption of Resolution 1047, which is amending Resolution 984 by deleting the $100,000 minimum requirement for participating in the E-Verify program. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd ask unanimous consent to pass the consent agenda.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. That takes us to Agenda Bill 3612, a public hearing and authorization agreement for critical areas memorandum of agreement with Clark Public Utilities. Mitch? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I had it marked everywhere except this one. Off of the consent agenda, Agenda Bill 30-12, Arborview Storm Water Facility Acquisition. Jim?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. Yes, we had some last-minute recommended action changes to this bill. And if you look at the recommended action originally, I'll just go through it. Number one was to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement and the statutory warranty deed when they become available for the acquisition of this stormwater facility. So the changes, the revised version, will be under recommended action, authorize the city to acquire legal title to the stormwater facility located in Tract A of the Arborview subdivision. And number two, under recommended action, further authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documentation to complete the transaction.
Thank you, Jim. Is there, Don?
Just real quickly, the reason I asked that, have that change is the mayor doesn't sign the warranty deed, the homeowners association signs it, so it's a fairly, I think we all knew what we were doing, but I wanted to make sure it was understood that way.
Don, can items 1 and 2 be combined into one motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the city to acquire the legal title to the stormwater facility located in Tract A of the Arborview subdivision, and that we authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documentation to complete the transaction.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to authorize the city to acquire the legal title to the stormwater facility located in Tract A of the Arborview subdivision and authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documentation to complete the transaction. Any council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now on to Agenda Bill 3612, public hearing regarding critical areas memorandum of agreement with Clark Public Utilities. Mr. Knipe.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. This hearing is for a request by Clark Public Utilities to renew their memorandum of agreement with the city in regards to the critical area. This memorandum of agreement, allows Clark Public Utilities to do the repair, maintain, and upgrade their infrastructure without obtaining separate individual critical area permits. It does require Clark Public Utilities to utilize best management practices within the critical areas and provide mitigation if necessary. The original memorandum of agreement was approved on May 15, 2006, and it's set to expire this year in May. There are no proposed changes from the original agreement except for the date, and that's really due to the fact that there hasn't been any changes to the critical ordinance since that time. And so it would be the same agreement that we've had in effect over the last 6 years. The request is to continue that for an additional 6-year time period. And just in terms of notice, the hearing the notice for tonight's hearing was provided on March 31st, 2012. The staff recommendation to council is to hold a public hearing, to take public testimony, and to make a motion authorizing the critical areas memorandum of agreement with Clark Public Utilities. Brian Carrico is here with Berger Avam, representing Park Public Utilities as well. And so during public comment, I'm sure we'll have something to say.
Thank you, Mitch. With that, I will open the public hearing and ask any of those members in attendance that wish to speak to the Critical Areas Memorandum of Agreement with Clark Public Utilities, please step forward. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. My name is Brian Carrico. I'm a project manager at Berger Avam in Vancouver. Our address is 1111 Main Street, Suite 300, 98660. My firm's been assisting Clark Public Utilities with critical area compliance really since the original agreement was adopted in 2006. And we're happy to continue that work with the city. On behalf of CPU and specifically Dean Sutherland, who heads up the program, I want to thank you for considering renewal of the agreement. It'll allow the CPU to continue to maintain and operate their utility corridors and facilities within the city to the benefit of our CPU utility customers within the city efficiently and consistent with the best management practices that help to protect critical areas in the city. So on behalf of CPU, I'd ask that you authorize the agreement, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak to the Memorandum of Agreement with Clark Public Utilities? Final and last call for anyone that would like to speak to the agenda bill. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to, oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. I move that we authorize the Critical Areas Memorandum of Agreement with Clark Public Utilities.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to authorize approval of the Critical Areas Memorandum of Agreement with Clark Public Utilities. Council discussion? Dave?
Mr. Mayor, two questions of our representative here, if I might. The first one is, does this involve going onto private property? Does this involve your crews going onto private property?
It would if there is an easement in place for those facilities to be there. That would be the only situation.
Okay, and what's your notification process for that?
You know, I don't get involved in the daily activities on that. I could be happy to get back to you with their notification practices.
And the concern here is that people who are going to have their property entered onto would know about it in advance for whatever arrangements they have to make. Animals have to be taken care of. Hazards have to be removed, that sort of thing. The other question is, and I don't think it's applicable here, but is there any chance that any of these actions that you would be taking would involve eminent domain?
No, this only involves maintenance and operations of our existing facilities.
I suspected as much.
If there's a new facility, it would go through a separate process, including permitting through the city and whatever needs were necessary to obtain access to those.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other council comments, questions?
I just wanted to observe, kind of underline the point that this is about maintaining the existing facilities, and that, for example, it may be necessary in the case of an emergency, say a down line, that you enter into an easement without notice. But it doesn't change anything is the key here. All it changes is a date.
Emergencies are emergencies.
Any other council questions, comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to authorize the approval of the Critical Areas Memorandum of Agreement with Clark Public Utilities. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. With that, council, let's go next door to the conference room for what will hopefully be a short, less than 10-minute executive session dealing with a labor issue with potential action to follow. So So we should be back in just a moment. Rose, did Jim leave?
Yes.
Okay. No. Don, you want to join us? Sure.
Rose, are you going to stay